Welcome back to English at Work. I'm Jenny.
And I'm Alex. This is episode 5 of our English for Meetings series.
So far, we've covered meeting basics, participating effectively, leading meetings, and virtual meeting skills. Today, we're tackling something that makes a lot of people nervous.
Presenting in meetings. Whether it's a 5-minute project update or a full presentation with slides, this is where you showcase your expertise and ideas.
And for non-native English speakers, this can be especially intimidating. You're standing up or on camera with all eyes on you, trying to communicate clearly in your second or third language.
But here's the good news. Presentations are actually more predictable than regular conversation. You control the content, the structure, and the pace.
Plus, presentation skills are learnable. You don't need to be a natural performer. You just need good structure, clear delivery, and practice.
By the end of this episode, you'll have a framework for organizing any presentation, techniques for delivering with confidence, and strategies for handling questions.
Whether you're presenting in person, on video, or in a hybrid setting, these skills will help you shine.
Let's get started.
Let's start by clarifying what we mean by presenting in a meeting. This isn't a formal conference presentation. It's more informal.
Right. We're talking about situations like giving a project update to your team, presenting analysis or recommendations, sharing research findings, or pitching an idea.
So what makes this different from a formal presentation?
Time constraints. You might have 10 or 15 minutes, not an hour. Your audience already knows the context. They're your colleagues, not strangers. And it's usually more interactive. People might ask questions throughout, not just at the end.
So it's more conversational?
Exactly. You're not giving a TED Talk. You're having a focused conversation where you're doing most of the talking.
What's the first thing you need to clarify before preparing?
Your objective. What do you want to achieve? Are you informing people, persuading them, getting feedback, making a decision?
Give me examples of each.
Informing, here are the results of our customer survey. Persuading, we should invest in this new technology and here's why. Getting feedback, here's my proposal, what do you think? Decision-making, we need to choose between option A and option B today.
Why does this matter?
Because it changes how you structure and deliver the presentation. If you're just informing, you can be straightforward. If you're persuading, you need to build a compelling argument.
What about understanding your audience?
Critical. Who are you presenting to? What's their level of knowledge? What do they care about?
Give me an example of how audience changes your approach.
Let's say you're presenting technical findings. To a team of engineers, you can use technical jargon and go deep into methodology. To senior executives, you need to simplify, focus on business implications, and get to the point quickly.
So you're adapting the same information.
Exactly. The data might be the same, but how you present it changes dramatically based on who's listening.
What about time limits?
Know exactly how long you have. If you're allocated 15 minutes, plan for 12 and leave 3 for questions. Always finish early rather than running over.
Why is running over such a problem?
It's disrespectful of everyone's time. Plus, people stop listening if you go long. Better to be concise and leave them wanting more than to drone on until they're checking their watches.
What about the format? Slides or no slides?
Depends on the content and culture. Complex data, you probably need slides. Simple update, maybe just talk. When in doubt, ask the meeting organizer what's expected.
Can you present without slides?
Absolutely. Sometimes speaking without slides is more powerful because people focus on you and your message, not on reading text on a screen.
But slides can be helpful?
Yes, for visualizing data, showing images, keeping your presentation organized, and giving the audience something to look at. Just don't use them as a crutch.
What's the biggest mistake people make when they're about to present in a meeting?
Not preparing enough. They think, it's just my team, I can wing it. But even informal presentations need preparation.
How much preparation is enough?
For every minute of presentation, expect 5 to 10 minutes of preparation. A 10-minute presentation might take an hour or two to prepare, especially if you're creating slides. Now let's talk about structure. A well-structured presentation is clear, memorable, and easy to follow.
What's the classic structure?
Tell them what you're going to tell them. Tell them what you told them. In other words, introduction, body, conclusion.
That's the basic framework. Let's break it down. Starting with the introduction, what should it include?
Hook their attention, state your purpose, preview your main points, and establish credibility if needed.
Let's take those one by one. What's a hook?
Something that grabs attention in the first 30 seconds. Could be a surprising statistic, a relevant story, a provocative question, or a bold statement.
Give me examples.
Surprising statistic. Did you know that 70% of our customers have never used our mobile app? Provocative question. What if I told you we could double our revenue without adding headcount? Story. Last month, a customer called me in tears because our product saved her business.
So you're making them curious from the start?
Exactly. Don't start with, "Hi, I'm going to talk about the quarterly report." That's boring. Start with something that makes them lean forward.
What about stating your purpose?
Be explicit about what you're covering and why it matters. Today, I'm going to show you why we need to redesign our customer onboarding process, and I'll be asking for your input on 3 key decisions.
So they know what to expect.
Right. Then preview your main points. I'll cover 3 things. First, the problems with our current process. Second, proposed solutions. And third, implementation timeline.
That's signposting again, telling them the roadmap.
Yes, people follow presentations better when they know where you're going. This is especially helpful for non-native speakers in the audience.
What about establishing credibility?
If the audience doesn't know you well, briefly establish why you're the right person to present this. I've spent the last 3 months analyzing customer feedback, and I want to share what I've learned.
But if it's your regular team?
You can skip this. They already know you.
Now the body, the main content. How should you organize it?
The magic number is 3. 3 main points, 3 sections, 3 arguments. People remember information in chunks of 3.
Why 3?
It's enough to be substantive but not overwhelming. 1 point feels thin, 5 points is too many to remember. 3 is the sweet spot.
What if you have more than 3 things to say?
Group them. Maybe you have 7 recommendations, but they fall into 3 categories. Present the categories, then the items within each.
What are good ways to organize your 3 points?
Several options. Problem, solution, action. Here's the problem. Here's how to fix it. Here's what we need to do. Past, present, future. Where we've been, where we are, where we're going. Option A, option B, recommendation. Here are 2 choices and why I recommend one. Can you give an example of each? Sure. Problem, solution, action. Our customer churn is 25%. Problem. If we implement a loyalty program, solution, we need to allocate $100K and launch in Q2, action.
And past, present, future?
Last year we had 50 clients, past. This year we have 75, present. Next year we're targeting 100, and here's how we'll get there, future.
What about using stories and examples in the body?
Essential. Abstract concepts are forgettable. Concrete examples and stories stick in people's minds.
How do you incorporate them?
After each main point, give a specific example. When I say our checkout process is confusing, here's what I mean. Last week, I watched a customer attempt to complete a purchase. She gave up after 6 clicks and still hadn't found the payment button.
So you're making it real and tangible.
Exactly. Stories activate different parts of the brain than facts do. They're more engaging and memorable.
What about data and statistics?
Use them, but don't overload. Choose the most compelling numbers and explain what they mean in plain language.
Example?
Don't say, revenue increased 47.3% year over year while EBITDA margins compressed 2.1 percentage points. Say, we're making a lot more money, almost 50% more than last year, but our costs grew even faster, which is concerning.
You're translating the jargon into impact.
Right. Always answer the so what question. Why does this number matter?
Now the conclusion. How should you wrap up?
Summarize your key points, restate your main message, and end with a clear call to action or next steps.
Give me a strong conclusion.
To recap, our customers are frustrated with the current checkout process. We have a solution that could increase conversions by 15%, and I need approval to proceed with development. Can I get a decision today on moving forward?
That's clear and direct.
Yes, don't end with, "So, yeah, that's it." End with clarity and purpose.
Let's talk about slides and visual aids. When should you use them?
When they genuinely help your audience understand, not just because everyone expects slides.
What makes a good slide?
Minimal text, maximum clarity. The slide should support what you're saying, not replace it.
What's the biggest slide mistake people make?
Putting entire paragraphs of text on slides and then reading them word for word. That's painful for everyone.
Why is it so bad?
Because people read faster than you speak. They'll read your slide, get bored waiting for you to catch up, and stop listening to you.
So what should be on a slide?
Keywords, images, charts, graphs, visual elements that enhance understanding, not full sentences that you're going to read.
Can you give me a before and after example?
Bad slide. Our customer satisfaction has declined by 15 percentage points over the past 6 months, primarily driven by long wait times for customer support and difficulty navigating our website. This represents a significant risk to retention.
That's a lot of text.
Too much. Good slide. A simple graph showing satisfaction declining from 85% to 70% over 6 months, with 2 bullet points: long support wait times and website navigation issues.
And you verbally explain the significance.
Exactly. The slide shows the trend visually. You explain what it means and why it matters.
What about font size?
Minimum 24-point font, preferably larger. If people in the back of the room can't read it, it's too small. And for virtual meetings, go even larger.
What about colors and design?
Keep it simple and professional. Dark text on light background or light text on dark background. Avoid busy patterns or too many colors.
Should every slide follow the same template?
Consistency is good. Use the same fonts, colors, and layout throughout. It looks professional and is easier to follow.
What about charts and graphs?
These are great for showing data, but keep them simple. Label axes clearly, use color meaningfully. Don't try to show too much in one chart.
How do you know if a chart is too complex?
If you need more than 10 seconds to explain it, it's too complex. Simplify or break it into multiple charts.
What about images and photos?
Use high-quality images that are relevant to your point. A picture really can be worth 1,000 words.
Should you use stock photos?
They're fine, but make sure they're good quality and actually relevant. Don't just throw in a random photo of people shaking hands.
What about animations or transitions?
Use sparingly. Simple transitions are fine. Elaborate animations are distracting and look unprofessional.
How many slides should you have?
Rough rule, 1 slide per minute of presentation. A 10-minute presentation might have 8 to 12 slides, but this varies widely based on content.
What if you're presenting data-heavy material?
You might need more slides, but each should still be clean and focused on one idea.
What about the title slide?
Should have the presentation title, your name, and the date. Keep it simple.
And the final slide?
Either a summary slide with key takeaways or a thank you slide with your contact information and invitation for questions.
Should you leave that slide up during Q&A?
Yes, it's better than going back to your desktop or a blank screen.
What about presenting without slides?
Sometimes that's the best choice. For a brief update or informal discussion, just talk. People will focus on you and what you're saying.
Any tips for presenting without slides?
Structure is even more important. Use clear verbal signposts. First, second, third. Help people follow along mentally.
What about whiteboards?
Great for brainstorming or explaining processes. You can draw diagrams, capture ideas, make things visual in real time.
Does that work in virtual meetings?
Yes, you can use virtual whiteboards or annotation tools. They're not quite the same, but can be effective.
Now let's talk about delivery, how you actually present, starting with your voice.
What aspects of voice should people pay attention to?
Volume, pace, tone, and clarity. Let's start with volume. You need to speak loudly enough that everyone can hear you easily.
How do you know if you're loud enough?
In person, project to the person farthest from you. On video, check your microphone levels. If people are leaning in or asking you to repeat yourself, you're too quiet.
What about pace?
Most people speak too fast when nervous. Slow down. Pause between key points. Give people time to absorb information.
How slow is slow enough?
Slower than feels natural to you. What feels awkwardly slow to you probably sounds just right to the audience. Especially important for non-native speakers. Give yourself time to pronounce words clearly.
What about tone?
Vary your tone to maintain interest. Don't be monotone. That's like a lullaby. It puts people to sleep. Let your voice go up and down naturally.
How do you add variety?
Emphasize important words. Get excited about interesting findings. Sound serious about concerning issues. Let emotion come through in your voice.
What about clarity and pronunciation?
Enunciate clearly. Don't mumble or trail off at the end of sentences. If you have an accent, that's fine. Just speak clearly and don't rush. Your expertise is what matters.
Now let's talk about body language, starting with posture.
Stand up straight with your weight balanced. Don't slouch, but also don't be rigid. You want to look confident and relaxed.
What about movement?
Some movement is good. It shows energy. But don't pace nervously or rock back and forth. Move purposefully to different parts of the room or toward different audience members.
What if you're presenting on video?
You're more limited, but you can still use upper body movement. Lean forward for emphasis. Use hand gestures within frame. Don't sit completely still like a statue.
What about hand gestures?
Use them naturally to emphasize points. Gestures make you seem more passionate and engaged. Just don't go overboard.
What gestures should you avoid?
Nervous gestures like touching your face, playing with your hair, or fidgeting with a pen. Keep your hands visible and purposeful.
What about eye contact?
Critical for connection. In person, make eye contact with different people throughout the room. Don't just look at one person or at your slides.
How long should you hold eye contact?
3 to 5 seconds per person, then move to someone else. You want to connect with everyone, not stare anyone down.
What about on video?
Look at the camera when making key points. Look at the screen to check audience reactions. Alternate between the two.
What about managing nerves?
Everyone gets nervous. The key is not eliminating nerves, but managing them.
What are good techniques?
Deep breathing before you start. Prepare thoroughly so you feel confident. Remind yourself that you're the expert on this topic. Start with something you're comfortable with to build momentum.
What about during the presentation if you feel panic rising?
Pause. Take a breath. Take a sip of water. It's okay to have a moment of silence. Then continue.
What about reading from notes?
Brief notes are fine. Glance at them if you need to remember what's next. But don't read from a script. It sounds robotic and you lose connection with your audience.
What should be in your notes?
Key points, statistics you might forget, transitions between sections, not full sentences.
What about memorizing your presentation?
Know your content very well, but don't memorize word for word. You want to sound natural and conversational, not like you're reciting.
What if you lose your place or forget what comes next?
Don't panic. Pause, check your notes or slides, and continue. Let me check my notes on this is perfectly acceptable.
What about enthusiasm? How much is too much?
Genuine enthusiasm is great. Forced enthusiasm is obvious and off-putting. Let your real interest in the topic show through.
What if your topic is kind of dry?
Find the angle that interests you and emphasize that. If you're bored by your own presentation, your audience will be too.
Let's talk about the Q&A portion. This makes a lot of people nervous because you don't know what's coming.
True, but you can prepare more than you think. Before presenting, anticipate likely questions and prepare answers.
How do you anticipate questions?
Think about gaps in your presentation. What didn't you cover in detail? What might people disagree with? What are the weak points in your argument?
And prepare answers for those?
Yes, you won't get all the questions right, but you'll be ready for many of them.
How do you invite questions?
Clearly and warmly. I'm happy to take questions now, or what questions do you have? Not any questions, which often gets silence.
Why does that phrasing matter?
What questions do you have assumes people have questions, which makes them more likely to ask. Any questions makes it easy to say nothing.
What if no one asks anything?
Have a prepared question ready. One question I often get is, and answer it. This often prompts others to think of questions.
What about when someone asks a question?
First, thank them. Great question. Thanks for asking. This encourages more questions.
Should you repeat the question?
If it's a large group or virtual meeting, yes. The question is about implementation timeline. Here's my answer. This ensures everyone heard it.
What if you don't understand the question?
Ask for clarification. Could you rephrase that? Or, just to make sure I understand, are you asking about X or Y?
What if you don't know the answer?
Be honest. That's a great question, and I don't have that data with me. Let me look into it and get back to you. Never make up an answer.
What if someone asks a hostile or challenging question?
Stay calm and professional. Don't get defensive. I understand your concern. Here's how I see it. Address the substance, not the tone.
What if someone disagrees with your conclusions?
Welcome different perspectives. That's an interesting point. Can you say more about why you see it that way? Engage in dialogue. Don't shut them down.
What if questions are derailing the discussion?
Acknowledge the question, but redirect. That's a bit outside the scope of today's presentation. I'm happy to discuss that with you afterward.
What about time management during Q&A?
If you have limited time, say so up front. We have about 10 minutes for questions, then manage accordingly. We have time for 1 or 2 more questions.
What if someone monopolizes the Q&A with multiple questions?
Politely redirect after they've asked 1 or 2. Thanks for those questions. Let me see if others have questions too. Then call on someone else.
How do you end the Q&A?
When time is up or questions dry up, thank everyone. If there are no more questions, thank you all for your attention and engagement. I'm happy to continue this conversation one-on-one if anyone has follow-up questions.
Should you stick around after to answer individual questions?
Absolutely. Some people are shy about asking in front of the group. Make yourself available for a few minutes afterward.
Let's recap how to present effectively in meetings.
Start by clarifying your objective. Are you informing, persuading, getting feedback, or driving a decision? Understand your audience and time constraints.
Structure with 3 parts: introduction with a hook, body with 3 main points, and conclusion with clear takeaways and next steps.
Use slides wisely. Minimal text, maximum clarity. 1 idea per slide. Make data visual. Never read your slides word for word.
Deliver confidently. Speak loudly and slowly enough. Vary your tone, make eye contact, use natural gestures, and manage your nerves with breathing and preparation.
Handle questions gracefully. Anticipate them in advance. Welcome them warmly. Repeat questions in large groups. Admit when you don't know something. And stay professional even with challenging questions.
Remember, the goal isn't perfection. It's clear communication of valuable ideas. Your expertise matters more than polish.
Next episode, we're covering difficult meeting situations, how to handle conflict, disagreements, dominant personalities, and meetings that go off the rails.
Until then, this is Jenny
And Alex from English at Work. Practice your next presentation out loud at least 3 times, and remember, you've got this.